Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It is Monday, October 9th, 2023. It is 11:03 a.m. This session is set to go until 12 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue Southeast, room 110. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. Vice Chair Ty Menser is excused for this meeting. He had a building council executive session he had to attend. And Commissioner Gary Edwards is to my left. Also in the boardroom, we have interim county manager Robin Campbell, as well as assistant county manager Rob Gelder, and we will be discussing the WARC solar project update briefing. And Rebecca Harvey, our climate mitigation program manager, is here. And
Yep.
Are you going to do an intro?
So, good morning, commissioners. This briefing is regarding a solar land lease that we've been working on in coordination with the WARC. Rebecca's going to tell you about the lease, and we have, it's informational today, but very soon we'll be asking you to make a decision to move forward on this project. So, Rebecca, go ahead and you can share your screen.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I cannot be there today. I'm in California with family, but thank you for the time and for scheduling this for me, Robin, for the team. So today's briefing is a follow-up on a briefing we had in January of 2023 when I first presented an opportunity to partner with Puget Sound Energy to develop a solar energy project on the closed landfill at the Thurston County Waste and Recovery Center, or WARC. So today staff would like to bring you up to speed on the status of project approval between Puget Sound Energy and a private solar developer, and on the discussions we've been having at the staff level about how to best proceed with the project in a way that ensures protection for the county, both legally and operationally. I'm joined today by Jeff Bickford and Craig Sisson from Public Works. I think those are the, two folks that have joined. Thanks you guys for joining. They're here for questions as well. They're very familiar with the project. And Karen Horowitz is not here, but Karen is with the prosecuting attorney's office, and she has also been working closely with us on this. So as a reminder, the briefing that we had in January, we discussed this opportunity to advance strategy B5 of the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, which is to increase the production of local renewable energy through exploring opportunities for solar on public facilities. So we discussed Puget Sound Energy's distributed solar and storage program and a preliminary proposal that was in the works from a private developer named EDF Renewables to lease land on the Thurston County WARC landfill to develop a solar energy installation. The board provided direction to explore a lease with EDFR in partnership with Puget Sound Energy. There are a number of benefits of a potential landfill solar project. First, the project would provide revenue to the county in the form of lease payments with an amount and term to be negotiated. Second, it would generate clean and reliable electricity, help the county and state advance our climate mitigation goals. Importantly, this type of project repurposes vacant land that has limited development potential. It can also have an economic development impact of creating construction jobs over, we're estimating 60 to 90 jobs over an 8-month construction phase that would pay a prevailing wage and other economic benefits such as local contracting opportunities. Adding solar to the electric grid helps reduce costs and price volatility associated with fossil fuels such as natural gas. It places little to no demand on local infrastructure and services such as roads, water, and sewer. And finally, the project would have a low visual profile and quiet operations to preserve the rural and open space character of the area. Staff identified the landfill as a priority location because there is a growing movement across the country to install solar on closed landfills and other brownfield sites, because these lands generally have great sun exposure and they have limited other redevelopment opportunities. The team identified an area of about 25 acres of open grassy land on the old closed landfill. That is shown here on the aerial photo. This would also likely be a desirable site for PSE. Well, it has been proven to be a desirable site because they have selected the project. Because the substation is close by and there's a lot of commercial nearby, and so there's a high demand for power. So it's a desirable site from the utilities perspective. And we calculated, or the team calculated, that the system would generate an estimated 3 megawatts of solar energy, which is about 375 times an average residential solar installation. And once again, it would, of course, provide revenue payments to the county. So EDFR has gone a bit deeper than that initial concept that you saw back in January to develop a draft program, the project design. And this is what you're looking at now. It's very detailed, but this has been evaluated by PSC, and they determined that it meets their criteria for the distributed solar and storage program, and they did select this project as one of the ones they want to move forward with in the project. So to develop the full design, EDF will now need to begin some studies and investigations. And this is the point that we are at now. So to move the project forward, we need, it's now between the county and EDF to develop some form of an agreement to enable those investigations to take place and keep the project on schedule. And I'll talk a little more about that. But I also wanted to back up to a bigger picture and just highlight a key aspect of the proposal they provided us. Highlights that EDFR is highly experienced in the development of solar photovoltaics on environmentally sensitive sites, including landfills. And the project will be designed and installed in a manner consistent with the best practices for siting solar on closed landfills, especially using concrete ballasted racking systems and above ground cabling, avoiding penetration of the ground and risking any damage to the landfill cap or facility operations. So to walk briefly through the process so far that the staff have been engaged in January, we had the initial project concept and board briefing. In March, EDFR submitted a proposal to PSE and the county provided a letter of support for the project. In April, the county published a notice of intent to negotiate lease, and then the county received one proposal. So it was out there for others. I know other developers had commented, looked at it. We did only receive the one proposal from EDFR. And then some time went by where we were starting to discuss internally, and then just in August, it took a bit of a leap forward when PSE decided to award the project to EDFR. So now the contract negotiations are beginning between those two parties, bringing us to where we are today with this briefing and discussion of the county's path forward. And I'll also note that between August and now, EDFR also provided the county with a description of the preliminary investigation and development activities, which staff have reviewed to understand the technical aspects of the work to be done. And we have had a number of conversations about this, and our solid waste staff have gained a level of comfort with the project from a technical perspective. And if there's questions about that, Jeff can speak to that as well. So the next steps to advance the project are, first of all, as soon as possible, the county and EDFR need to execute some form of short-term agreement to demonstrate site control and enable the initial investigations. So site control is a very key concept that they have been emphasizing all along, and we can talk more about that in the questions if you want to talk about what that means. So second, as I mentioned, EDFR and PSC are already in progress of negotiating a power purchase agreement and interconnection agreement. And so then the next step after that short-term agreement for the county is also for the county to begin to work on the terms of a long-term lease agreement, and we can start that as soon as we have direction to do so. Well, I think we do have direction, but we can discuss that more today. And it's just that these types of leases are long and fairly complicated. So getting a start on that, we actually do have an example of one already with staff. So we are looking at it. And then the next step, kind of these are all like happening simultaneously to some extent. So EDFR would then, once they have that site control, would come on site to conduct those preliminary investigations and development activities that are listed here, and construction may begin when the lease is finalized. So this brings us to where we are now and the questions that we are considering regarding a short-term agreement with EDFR. So first and foremost, the county's primary obligation is to maintain the core mission of the work at the Waste and Recovery Center. The county must ensure that the project will not cause environmental harm to the closed landfill or disrupt operations at the site. The county also needs sufficient time to negotiate the potential lease terms before entering into a binding agreement to lease the land. However, for their part, EDFR is asking for the assurance that there will be a lease agreement before ramping up their costly investigations. These investigations are needed before they can provide the fully detailed project design. So we have been caught in I don't want to say a catch-22 exactly, but a little bit of a bind where the county wants as much detail as possible on the project and adequate time to evaluate risk before committing to a long-term agreement, whereas the developer wants the county to commit to the lease as soon as possible before they go any further with project design to ensure that the county won't just walk away when they're, investing their resources. So a key question has been, can the two parties come to an agreement on an exclusivity clause? All along, the developer has been asking the county to agree to some form of exclusivity because this is how they will demonstrate to PSC that they have the site control needed to proceed. In one sense, staff thinks that we have satisfied this exclusivity already because we did put out that NOI and only received one proposal from this developer. We have considered a couple different definitions of exclusivity, broader or more narrow. But I think the direction we're getting from legal counsel and the preference would still be to remove the word exclusivity entirely. So that's kind of what we're looking at this point. And then finally, there are some details of any agreement that would need to be worked out, such as indemnification and insurance language and review by risk. And so the next steps for the county are to develop a short-term agreement that essentially states that the county and EDFR will work in good faith to negotiate a lease over a defined time frame. It may also include a right of entry for EDFR to come on site. And at the same time, staff will also start to develop a long-term lease and begin the negotiations as soon as possible, because that might take several months. It will take several months, I believe, with the aim of meeting PSC's schedule for construction beginning in 2025. So that is the summary of where we are. I just want to conclude that we have heard in the past that the board supports this project. We have heard for many members of the community and the Solid Waste Advisory Committee that there is strong support for this project. The Public Works Department and the County Commissioner's Office staff support this project, and we don't want to lose this great opportunity to realize the many benefits of developing a very large solar installation on county property that really can't be developed for any other purpose. And I think we have the will, and we're just working out the details of how to get there. And so I will pause here, and Jeff and Craig are here with us as well, and we will take any questions or aspects that you'd like to discuss.
Okay, thank you. Can we stop sharing the screen, please? Thank you. Okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards?
As we move forward, because I don't see why not, I guess, I'm hoping that we will not try to reinvent the wheel. It sounds like there are other jurisdictions that have entered into these kind of agreements, and I hope we can plagiarize those and not, you know, not spin our wheels. Government has a terrible habit of spinning its wheels sometimes. I'm not saying that's the case on this, but I guess I am looking for, is there any initial reason that why we would not want to move forward this? I haven't heard anything that, you know, well, it's going to be a terrorist attack point or whatever. I mean, I don't know what it's going to be, but has anybody got anything about, well, there is, once in a while we'll have pros and cons, and I see in your paper we don't have any pros and cons on this. And I suppose that's because maybe there's no cons. I don't know that. I'm just curious.
I'll go ahead and just, from our perspective, as far as the landfill and the facility, in general, I'd say from Public Works perspective and from solid waste side, this looks like a good project. There's been, the EPA generated a best management practices for solar facilities like this over closed landfills, because it's been done quite a bit, particularly on the eastern side of the country, especially. And from what we've seen from these folks, the EDF so far, is that they're going to be complying with those. So, because for again, I think as Rebecca mentioned, I mean, our primary concern is just making sure that they don't damage our closed landfill facility, or you know, and we are responsible for continuing to run and operate that for, you know, forever practically. We just want to make sure that it's not going to get in our way. And from what we've seen so far, that appears to be the case. That I think it would be, to put it another way, they should be a reasonably good neighbor, so to speak. So generally speaking, you know, if they operate and construct and based upon those general criteria, I don't see a lot of cons either. We are generally supportive of the concept, as they mentioned. Otherwise, this land isn't really developable for other activities, because it settles, you know, because it's an old closed landfill, and really you can't put buildings on it, and yeah, it's not really suitable for other things. So
Oftentimes we'll hear about a power generation plant that powers so many homes. Rebecca gave us some initial figures there, but that doesn't equate to anything that I can relate it to. So do we know how many homes would be powered by this type of an operation? And I know the sun doesn't shine in the night and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, what do you get? About 1/3 of the time you get production that's producing electricity, and what is the equivalent of whatever that's going to produce? You know,
Yeah.
100 homes?
Yeah. No, thank you, Commissioner, for the question. I did a preliminary calculation that, looking at the average residential rooftop solar installation size in Washington State is 8 kilowatt, an 8 kilowatt system, and this would be a 3 megawatt system. So that is 375 times the average generation for, or the average size for, sorry. So it would essentially equivalent to powering 375 homes. I could certainly do more in-depth calculations of how much energy it would produce and make that a little more specific, but just on that back of the envelope, I would say about 375 homes.
About 375 homes. Okay, and then how long does this equipment last that they're going to put on site?
It's a 25-year term. The contract, the lease would be for 25 years because that is the lifespan of the equipment.
Okay, so after 25 years, then it is recycled, it's put in the landfill, it can be refurbished. What's after 25 years? What happens? Better technology, and we'll be able to do things better after that, or what?
The solar panels are almost entirely recyclable. I can look up specifically, but I know that most of the materials of the panels are now recyclable.
Are these panels produced here in the United States? Are they produced with slave labor in China, or what? There's a big spread of what it could be. So could you let us know what that is?
I can certainly look into that. I don't believe we've gotten far enough down the project to determine the source of the assets themselves, but I know that for federal grants, there is typically a Buy American requirement. So allow me to look into that for you if PSC has a that type of requirement in place, but many, I would hope that they are. I know that it's a growing industry in the United States, and so I think it would be completely reasonable to, even for the county, to put in the contract that we require that the panels be produced in the United States.
When we're doing something with public property, I understand we went out for some kind of a bid for this, but there's probably no chance that we could get accused of gifting as long as we go through the bid process. But I guess what I'm wondering about is, do we need a public hearing on any of this process when we're doing something of this magnitude?
I will defer to Robin on that.
Right, I do not believe we need a public hearing on this. It's,
I guess the
no
reason.
change to county code, we went through an RFP. We are going to lease the land to this organization, so they will pay to be able to use our property for this purpose.
No, I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
great to me, but thinking ahead, I mean, I didn't think when these cell towers for cell phones got to be a thing that we would have such opposition to those type of activities. So if we had a public hearing, at least it assures, I don't know if there's any dissenters out there, but they could come forward and say, oh, no, spaceships come down and rob the power, whatever it is. It's so outlandish what I've heard on the whole cell tower thing over the years. And I'm not saying that there isn't merit to what some of those concerns are, but I hate to get into something and then, oh, we missed this. We didn't realize that. And
So we may hear opposition to a large solar array. That's possible, but I don't believe that there is any legal requirement for us to do any type of public hearing. And I will just ask that staff check with the attorneys to ensure there's no type of notification requirement for this type of use of the land.
I would think it would automatically be, quite a big deal. And we'll never hear about opposition if the public really doesn't know about it as it's developing.
Right.
So that's kind of why I ask about the public hearing.
Sure.
If we would have something, how would we notify the public? I think our public specifically is very in tune with this type of thing, and they would want to know that their government was trying to solve problems by going out and doing something like this, and I think it'd be important to let the public know that, you know, kind of like a big front page article on, the Olympian about a new casino that's going in over by Lacey, you know, let's get it out on the front page that we're looking at coming up with solutions to power problems.
You can absolutely come up with some type of a communication plan around this. But again, I don't believe it requires a public hearing.
I think there was also an article about this in one of Rebecca's earlier presentations to the board when we were first looking into this. There was, an article kind of outlining this, but I was looking at Megan, in terms of a communication plan, and I'm sure she could come up with something in regards to this.
I mean, I can't think of a reason why we wouldn't want to do it, to be honest with you, unless we find out that something nefarious is going on over somewhere else and that could have a detrimental effect on kids, or I don't know. I'm just throwing that
Well,
out there.
you know, it's the area where it's at, right? It's already a landfill.
Right.
It's not being used for anything. I guess I just really want to thank Rebecca for really looking into this and going down this path. And Jeff and Craig, right, from the landfill perspective, right, and helping Rebecca kind of just, you know, have this project. I'm glad that, you know, we got chosen as one of the sites by PSC and that we're kind of in this step of the process. I think it's very exciting. And the fact that it's going to be bringing in some sort of revenue, even if it's not that much anytime. There's something
Yeah.
bringing in revenue where, in a place where we're not bringing in revenue, right? Like landfill is just a
Right.
landfill, and the fact that we might be able to bring some sort of revenue to that is pretty great. I guess in terms of the revenue, where does it go?
I was just sitting here thinking about that. Because it is the landfill, it's probable that this would have to go into the solid waste
Could I,
fund, but we are going to ask the attorneys if that's a requirement.
can we ask the, not to, you know, Jeff over there, he's probably like,
Right.
but, I would like the attorneys to look into that if it's a
Yes.
possibility to,
Because I would love to deposit it into the general fund.
I would like to just throw in one more, I don't think it's a wrinkle. To some people it's a wrinkle, but to me it's not. You know, we always talk about doing the right thing for our young people. Well, when our young people are serving in the United States Navy, they're serving on a ship that's powered with a nuclear reactor. And those nuclear reactors are a long way from whoops down here when they had the big problem down at, down south of us here.
Yes.
Anyway, I think it is always worth being aware that technology does change, and if we're gonna set aside some property out there that eventually we would hope won't be vandalized and might need some security sometime in the future, that we think ahead, because over in Europe, there are a lot of semi-trailer sized nuclear power plants that they use over there. And I'd like to have us be thinking, even though some people say, oh no, nuclear, you can't do that, don't even talk about nuclear. We don't want to hear about nuclear. It's hazardous and all that kind of thing. We have people with preconceived notions, you might say. I'd like to make sure that as we move forward with this, that we maybe think about that. Would this site tie into a double use at some time? And maybe those type of safe nuclear facilities generating electricity could become part of the plan. We don't know yet. It's too far into the future, but I like to play chess rather than checkers. So that's where I'm at. So I just throw that out. No, sounds good to me.
okay.
Great.
And another thing on the revenue side of things, knowing that there is an ask for the implementation of the climate mitigation, I feel there was, right, even if the funding, I guess the specific question for the attorneys, can that funding,
Oh.
if not for solid waste, could it, since it's a clean energy project, can it be directed towards future clean energy projects?
Nice.
Or something along those lines, if that's something,
Or to help pay the county's
yeah,
power bill even. I mean,
like just something along, like.
I thought about that,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a very interesting angle. We'll explore that. All right, so if you don't have any other questions, then our next step is Rebecca will bring a agreement for the board to approve on a Tuesday afternoon AIS between the county and EDFR, right? So that we can move this forward.
Thank you.
Can I ask one clarifying question, and this is probably for Jeff or Craig. That is related to the request that EDFR would like to have, right of access to the property, right? I would hope that whatever agreement would be structured would actually have some notification requirements so that, solid waste knows when the company is coming on property, so that it doesn't impact operations, et cetera.
Of course. Right.
Okay,
For EDFR, I think one of the more important pieces is the county's commitment to moving forward.
I know, Thomasina is here on behalf of,
Sure.
Commissioner Menser. Just, is there, not to put you on the spot, Thomasina, or anything, but anything you would like to add on behalf of Commissioner Menser?
No, I think you've asked some great questions. I've been taking notes throughout this whole session, and I'll be sure to catch Ty up with all of this once I have a moment to talk to him. But no, I don't have any questions. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. Okay. 11:35, thank you again. We are adjourned.